Whoa, 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 whoa.
Wait, what's the problem?
This
What's the matter?
This is not a Jet show.
So what?
So how about this?
Manning lobs it. Boris alone. Touchdown, New York.
Oh, come on. I don't want to hear this.
Why not? Super Bowl champions.
Doesn't matter. I just don't want to hear it.
What do you want to hear?
How about some Mets?
Hey, if I can find one good thing that happened to the Mets, here we go.
Home run. Mike Piazza and the Mets lead 3-2.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be, I'm sorry. We all can't be like the Yankees.
Oh, speaking of.
This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly.
No. God, I can't believe I just said that. All right, well, listen. How about a little Nets?
If I have to.
Hit the jumper to win it. He got it.
I can't take it. I can't take it anymore. It's been a second. I can't take it. How about some Knicks?
Oh, yeah, big spenders. Can't win a playoff.
Fair enough.
Houston pops out up top, down the lane, running jumper off the front rim, and in.
I guess we should talk a little hockey, no?
People even watch hockey anymore?
They watch the Rangers.
Well, if you have the Rangers, you gotta have some Islanders.
Yeah, no, they didn't have a YouTube in the 80s.
All right, let's get the show started.
Here we are, polar opposites. Hello and welcome to the Polar Opposites Sports Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Polar Oppo, on the Instagram at Polar Oppo Pod. I'm Matt Stevens. Alongside me, as always,
It is Craig Moffat.
Greg.
Matt, you having a little trouble with your screen there?
Oh no, that's my camera. It's on a one of them ring light things, but it spins. So if I hit it,
okay.
it goes too far. It gets a little wonky.
Matty, how you doing, man?
Oh man, I'm always good. How about yourself?
I'm all right. Apologies for last week's show with the technical difficulties. Hopefully, it's all part of the Zoom era, I guess, or the StreamYard or all that Wi-Fi era. So hopefully,
Actually,
the
Craig,
show goes off.
You're not at fault. The people that are at fault are the people who never make any upgrades to Wi-Fi and make it better, and just keep selling us the same shit over and over and over again. And it always goes in and out. Like, you're telling me at this point that we can't, like, how is it still doing that? Like, how is it still doing that? Come on, we could control a car from Mars that does scientific experiments from Earth. We can't make Wi-Fi better? Get it together.
So on that note, thank you for checking us out for today's show. You can follow the show on Twitter at Polar Oppo and on Instagram at Polar Oppo Pod. I hope I have that right. If not, scratch it, strike that, reverse it.
Yep.
And we have a lot to go over today. We're going to get in. We're going to we last week's show got kind of interrupted, of course. Like, we tried to get through. We were talking some Knicks basketball. We were talking about Jimmy Garoppolo's injury. We were talking about a lot of different things. And unfortunately, my Wi-Fi just kept crapping out. So we are going to continue last week's show. We're going to do mostly kind of in case you like, this pretty much most of the show is going to be in case you missed it. We have 10 topics that we want to just kind of chat. We're going to get into some NBA final stuff. The Nuggets have a 1-0 lead, and game 2 is tonight. And then we'll get into some other stuff as well. And we are going to have a very fun, friendly debate this afternoon on the classic Revenge of the Nerds.
We're in the gloaming, I believe. It's called the gloaming, I believe. Is this what this time of day is called? The gloaming.
Yeah. So we're going to get into a little friendly debate that I came up today regarding the 1980s classic Revenge of the Nerds. So
a movie that would not be made today. A movie that would not be made today. No, hell no. Woo.
Not even close. Not even remotely close. But we'll get into that in a minute, because none of the kids know about that movie, and it's just an absolute classic.
It's so wonderful.
All right, Matt. So we're going to kick off the show with normally we talk a lot of New York sports at this time, but there's not really a lot going on to really focus on, because we talked about the Knicks last week. So the Knicks are pretty much just getting ready for free agency, getting ready for the draft, even though I don't think they have a draft pick this year. OTAs are going on in the NFL. So again, nothing really like to talk about there. People are going to get excited there's no injuries. That's the beauty of it.
That's all I want. That's all. I want no news from OTAs. Nothing. I don't want to hear anything, because news is bad.
everybody just, when their quarterback has a great pass, everybody goes crazy thinking they're going to automatically be MVP or rookie of the year, that type of shit. So Matt and I know a little bit better. Baseball is baseball. Yankees are doing really well. The Mets kind of right back where they started after sweeping the Phillies last week. And so what we're going to do today is going to do something a little different. We have what I like to call This Week in New York. And basically what I did was I went on Twitter, went on all these random, blogs for New York teams. And I came up with 5 things, and I'm going to throw them out at Matt. And we're just going to fire them off really quickly. And so without further ado, as I couldn't really end it on that note. Matt, are you ready?
Always.
All right. So this week in New York, we will start with number 1. It's about the Knicks. And I came across this earlier this week. And, we were talking about it last week, how there's always a laundry list of superstars that are automatically rumored coming to the Knicks, right? We hear about it time and time again. The minute a team gets eliminated from the postseason, their star player is rumored to be headed to the Knicks, because there's always a story that breaks a day after, a week after a certain team gets eliminated. And the first part of it is that said person is not happy where they are currently with their team. So last week we were talking a little bit about Doc Rivers getting fired from the Sixers, and there's now conflicting reports about the status of Joel Embiid. And apparently, right off the bat, and I can't really confirm the source, but the Knicks are reportedly waiting to see if Joel Embiid will ask out of Philly. Matt, take it away.
If you need a visual representation for what it's like to be a Knick fan during the offseason, think of the football in the Peanuts with Charlie Brown being taken away from him. The media was it Sally, Cindy, who's the mean one? Lucy. Holding the football, Charlie Brown going to kick it. Knicks fans are Charlie Brown, and every time they go to kick it because they think the big star's coming, and then the media pulls it away and laughs at them for being idiots because they always believe the nonsense. Do you understand what it would take for the 76ers to trade Joel Embiid, who they could trade him to? Almost any team would take him. Do you know how much it would take for him to go to an East team in the same division? Like, get the hell out of here, man.
Wait.
It would take a draft pick for the rest of the time.
It wouldn't just cost Evan Fournier's expiring contract like most Knicks fans think.
Oh, yeah. That and Derrick Rose and RJ Barrett.
But as a sweetener,
but Knicks fans wouldn't want to do it if RJ Barrett's in, so we're screwed.
But as a sweetener, they'll throw in Isaiah Hartenstein, because that's
thank God. No, we can't get rid of Hartenstein.
This is exactly what we always talk about, because this is one of the funny things about Twitter. I'm not a big fan of Twitter because it's the knee-jerk fans. It's the fans that have like the overreactions to everything. And we were just talking about it before, or I just mentioned it before, that when you see in OTAs CJ Stroud throwing a 40-yard bomb without any pressure whatsoever, and everybody goes apeshit about it, and everybody right away is like, oh, this guy's going to be an MVP. Or when you hear the stories about how Tua is really taking command of the Dolphins huddle in the offense. And I'm saying to myself, yeah, I really think Tyreek Hill is sitting there going, yeah, Tua, I got your back. Because we know Tyreek Hill's probably saying, yeah, Tua, whatever, go fuck off. Like, I mean,
look,
this is what I mean. It's just like, this is the beauty of Twitter. This is the only reason why I like Twitter, because it's the most ridiculous platform for sports fans I've ever seen in my life.
If the Knicks fans know it too, we have a term for it. It's called Knicks for clicks.
Yeah.
That's what they do, because they know the Knicks are going to get traction because they have a huge fan base. It's New York City. So if you throw Knicks in, and to a lesser extent Nets, but if you throw the Knicks in, you know that people are going to click on your story. But you can't honestly, like, if you're the GM of the 76ers, if I'm the owner of the 76ers and my guy trades Joel Embiid to the Knicks, that dude gets fired.
Yeah.
Well, no, it doesn't go through because he's got to check with me first, but still, I would fire him just for even bringing it to me. I mean, like, you're out of your mind. You trade him out west. I don't ever want to see that motherfucker again. To the Knicks. Hey, get the fuck out. Stop. Just stop. If you want that to happen, it's got to be a star from out west, because they're not trading him in the division. They're not. You're not getting Tatum. You're not getting Brown. You're not getting Jimmy Butler. You're not getting who's the old looking dude in Atlanta? Trae Young. You're not getting Trae Young. You're not getting Joel Embiid. You're not getting any of them. None. And if you are, you're going to so much. It's going to be ridiculous.
You're going to have to give up. Well,
Ah.
I don't even know what to say, but like I said, this is the funny part about it all. It's just that you see these stories and we get it. That's what
not
it's kind of what
fun
it's
for
kind of what I said about it's kind of what I said about sports radio, because sports radio, I just think a lot of times nowadays they don't believe their own bullshit anymore. I think it's just they're doing whatever they can to just get people to call in. It could be the most outright ridiculous opinion ever, and it
like
doesn't
saying the
fucking
Rays are
matter.
cheating?
What's that?
Like saying the Rays are
Oh, yeah.
cheating?
Saying
With
the
no
Rays
proof
are cheating.
whatsoever?
Yeah. It's like it gets to the point where it just gets laughable after a while. It just gets laughable. It was like when I brought it up, I think last week we were talking about it, and it was, a guy like Brandon Tierney saying, well, the Mets should really go after Josh Donaldson. But the only reason why he wants that is because he just wants Josh Donaldson's contract off the Yankees books. He doesn't, he doesn't fucking care he's not interested in the Mets trying to get better. He's just trying to find a way to make his team better at the end of the day. So we see this stuff. Yeah.
You'll get some ratings.
You'll get realism. Trust me, you will get the most realistic sports opinions of your life. And all it is just bullshit now. It's just complete bullshit. And you see it time and time again. And this is no different. Anybody with a pulse can be a journalist. Anybody with a pulse. If you know how to put pen to paper and can just make a little bit of a convincing argument, not a lot, just enough to get people to be like, oh yeah, that could be interesting, or find a way to tag it, you're going to get the clicks, and it's not going to matter how full of shit or how unlikely your theory is going to happen. Sound good?
Yeah. Yeah,
all
get
right.
out of here with this.
Number 2, per Buster Olney, the Mets are the front runners to land Shohei Ohtani because of Billy Epler. And you see what I mean, Matt? Exactly. Because Billy Epler, I think, signed him or recruited him to Anaheim when he was the GM in Anaheim. It doesn't mean anything. Here are the facts. This is what I think about Shohei Ohtani. If he's going to any other team, I think he's going to the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he wants to come to the East Coast. I don't think he has any desire to come to the East Coast.
No. Because if he did, he'd be a Yankee right now.
Exactly.
You don't think the Yankees would have paid him more money than the Angels? Hey, come on.
But Matt, you know what the crazy part about that was? When Ohtani was a free agent at the time, he didn't even take a meeting with the Yankees.
Right.
It wasn't even about whether he went to the Yankees and everything. He didn't even take a meeting. So why would I be convinced at this point that he would take a meeting with the Mets? Unless the Mets were going to offer him literally $600 million to come here.
Let me just tell Buster Olney this, because I think sometimes these guys get caught in their own bubble, like in their own world, right? Like they're constantly around it, so they don't understand how the real world works. Okay. The only reason Shohei Ohtani is coming to the Mets is because of the owner and the amount of fucking money he can pay him. That's the only reason. It's not Billy Epler. It's not anything else, because all things being equal, he's staying out west. And I'm not saying this because I'm a Yankee fan. I'm saying this because of the Yankees have a great history with Japanese players, right? And them playing well for the Yankees, or at least with, a couple. And like, he would go to the Yankees because it would be for his brand, but he wants to stay out west. Do you know why? Because it's easier for him to get back home. Do you know what the plane ride is from New York to Japan? It's long. But from the West Coast, it's kind of like coming up to New York. So he wants to stay out west to be home. Dodgers, Angels, Padres. That's it. Maybe Giants, but I mean, who the fuck wants to go to San Francisco? It's too cold. So
you never know what the Giants. You never know what the Giants, because if the Giants were all in on Judge, I could see them. But I just think his price tag is only going to be certain teams paying for it, and
unless Cohen comes in with a bill, like $1 billion, if he goes, hey, I'll pay you $1 billion over 5 years. Yeah, then he's going to New York.
But the only team I could see him going to are the Dodgers. I can't see him going to any other team, especially East.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
I mean, especially East. I mean, and I think if he had to choose between the two New York teams, I'm sorry, Met fans, I think he's choosing the Yankees. I agree with you. I think there's more history. They've won more championships. There's no guarantee that the Mets are anywhere close to a championship than they were last year or the year before that. Whereas I think the Yankees are always playing for the World Series every year. He's going to want to go there. I mean, the question is, you just gave Judge 360. Then you're going to give Ohtani like this. And the thing with me is, it's not that I don't want Ohtani. I want Pete Alonso signed. Like, that's like, I just want Pete Alonso signed. I think kind of going in right now, hypothetically, and giving Shohei Ohtani all this money is going to piss off a guy like Pete Alonso, because he's basically carried your offense for a long time. And he's a homegrown player. And that's the guy I would prefer to have, because I just want Pete Alonso. I want Pete Alonso locked up long term. I guess
but Pete Alonso should be getting done before the season ends. That shouldn't carry over, should it? Haven't they already started talking?
They've started talking. I don't know how serious it's gotten, but they have started talking. But I want that deal done. That's just me. Like, it's not that I don't want Ohtani. I'd be lying if I ever said that.
Craig, you don't have to worry about it. He's not coming here. And again, unless Cohen opens up the bank and rolls out a bill, he's not coming, man. He's just not coming. Sorry, everyone. Sorry.
I just think he prefers the Yankee meeting. The fact that he blew off the Yankees is enough to tell me that he doesn't want to come to the East Coast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
not about the teams. It's about the location, man. If the Yankees were the Los Angeles Yankees, he'd be there.
All right, number 3, the Nets' interest in Damian Lillard is considered very serious.
Okay. Here's the problem, folks, and this is something that we all have to think about when we think about these things. Okay, if the Nets trade for Damian Lillard, the Nets are the Blazers that he just left. Like, you can't be a mediocre team and trade for a great player without other great players around him, because then you're just putting him in the same situation. He just happens to be in Brooklyn instead of in Portland. Okay, it doesn't make any sense.
And
it doesn't make any sense.
Again,
and I love Lillard. I want him on the Knicks bad, but it actually makes more sense for the Knicks right now than it does for the Nets. Because the Knicks have more assets right now than the Nets do. Because
but the Knicks are also in a better position. They're in a better position right now, playoff wise, than the Nets are. The Nets are basically regrouping again because they had to get rid of Durant and Kyrie. So,
right, but they also have more of their picks, right? Because the Nets, I know they got some back for the Durant and all that stuff, but there's some picks gone out. But like, just if you're the Nets, just stop. Your GM built a really good fucking team the last time before you blew it up with KD and Kyrie. He built a really good team that actually made it into the playoffs. And didn't they get past the first round, or they get swept in the first round? I don't remember, but it doesn't matter. They built the team that was
the first round. They made it past the first round. They lost in the second round, and the year after that, they got swept. They got swept by the Celtics.
But they were growing, and he had a really good knack for finding guys in the second round, late first rounds, because he didn't have any picks because of the Garnett deal before that. So just stop. Let the guy build a freaking team, and then when it's built, you can go get a guy because you'll have assets back.
I want the draft picks. Like, I want youth again, because we tried it that way. It didn't work. So then my ultimate question is, why would you want to go down that road again after you just literally had to get out from abject failure, basically?
Also, why would you even want to be? I'm asking for Bridges.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
and then where are you?
And that's the thing. Like, I don't want Lillard's contract right now on the Nets payroll. He's what, third? I think we said he's like 33, 34. I think right 32. Now
it's somewhere 32.
In there. But still, it's just like, are the Nets really in that position to bring in a guy like Damian Lillard to say, okay, we're all in? Because then if you do that, then you got to make another trade to add another guy, because that's the only way it's going to work. And then
do you want to know the perfect place for Dame Lillard to go? The Miami Heat. If you just had him stand behind the 3-point line with Bam and Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero, that dude would just launch threes all game, and he's good, and he can actually hit them, unlike Duncan Robinson and some of the other guys. But I'm telling you, Miami Heat, that's the best team for him, because he won't have to run the floor, because you got a guy who can run the floor. He can just stand behind the 3-point line as far as he wants and just chuck it up, and they'll go win championships.
Again, though, it's just like, I just can't picture. I don't want to go down this road again. I want
No,
the
it's dumb.
draft picks. I like having the draft picks. Just if you want to trade one first round pick for like a player, then that's fine. But I don't want to. We just got picks back for our future. Now you want to remortgage the future for a guy who's only going to be here for like another 2 years, and he's not going to want to be here after that. And then you're gonna find yourself in a position where you have no choice but to pay the guy ridiculous amounts of money. It's like after the Boston Celtics got eliminated, Jaylen Brown is apparently up for like a $245 million supermax.
Yeah.
And it's like they've been together for a long time and they have not won a championship. Do you really want to commit $245 million right now to Jaylen Brown? I mean, that's a tall order. This is where I think this is the part where the Knicks should be watching this closely because you could see some changes in the Sixers roster. No, I'm not talking about them getting Jaylen Brown. I'm saying they're in a really good spot. No, I'm not talking about them landing Jaylen Brown or Joel Embiid. Far from it.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is that the Sixers are a team that I'm not saying they're dysfunctional, but if Harden leaves, if Embiid decides, okay, well, Harden's gone, I'm out, then the Sixers are right back to where they started. And now the Celtics may have to think about tweaking their roster because the not saying the Brown Tatum combo doesn't work, but in that game 7 with him and Brown and Marcus Smart, they were all terrible. They were all terrible.
Oh.
They got completely outplayed. And I know Tatum got hurt with the ankle injury, but
Brown's the culprit there to me.
Brown didn't really pick up the slack for Tatum. Right. And they
Brown's
suffered.
Too.
And they wound up losing by like what, 18 or 19?
It was embarrassing.
So this is where the Knicks should be keeping an eye on is like, wait a minute. Now, if the Celtics take a step back and the Sixers take a step back, we're in a really, really good spot because we have one of the top players right now in the East in Jalen Brunson. I don't know how they feel about Julius Randle, so I can't really speak on that. But they're also pretty loaded with guys like Quickly, with guys like Obi Toppin, with Quentin Grimes and McBride. Like they're young. Like they have a pretty solid roster. They'll probably add another piece at some point, and they'll probably bring back Josh Hart as well.
And
Knicks could be a very dangerous team next year.
And I'm just going to say it because I think it needs to be said because I think people forget it sometimes. RJ Barrett's going to be like 22.
Mm-hmm.
He came in the league at like 18, 19 years old. Like he's only going to be like 22 years old. Like he still has time to develop to a good player. Like he's a good player, but he still has time to get better. Like it's possible for him to get better. Like it is.
Sure.
So just settle down, like, so just relax. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
You got all right. Number 4, Bill Barnwell of ESPN recently wrote that the Jets should have signed Teddy Bridgewater instead of landing Aaron Rodgers. I told you that this is what I find, Matt, on Twitter.
I read these things and I hear these things in podcasts and I wonder, why are we not more successful? Like we're better than these idiots. And Bill Barnwell's like a big guy. What the fuck is he talking about? Teddy Bridgewater over Aaron Rodgers? Listen, I like Teddy Bridgewater. He's fine. This show is already, we've always enjoyed Teddy Bridgewater. In fact, I believe we were recording live when Teddy Bridgewater like blew out his knee.
We were actually, or we were like really close to starting and then we found out it happened.
And we'd like heard it was grotesque and all that stuff. So we like Teddy Bridgewater. We want him to succeed. We like him, but not over Aaron Rodgers. Like, don't be dumb. Don't be dumb. Don't be dumb. And saying stuff like that, the only reason you say stuff like that is so that idiots like us end up talking about it. And you also get clicks because people want to then comment on how stupid you are. But you don't care that people think you're stupid because you just got all the clicks. Now, Bill, come back to me, Bill.
The reasons were absolutely hilarious as to why he felt this way. Number one, he was saying that Bridgewater is like 9 years younger than Rodgers.
Sure.
Bridgewater is really well liked on like teams and all the teams he's played for. He's really well liked. Okay. It doesn't fucking matter if he's well liked. Okay. I'm well liked by people that I work with all the time. It doesn't mean that I should automatically be owning the spot that I work or anything. It's like, yeah, that's great. But there's a reason why Teddy Bridgewater is always a backup quarterback in the NFL. He's just not a starter anymore. Like he's not a starter. But even so, like the fact that I'm even defending this is it's like, like as to like the reasoning, and I'm convinced of this too, Matt. If Aaron Rodgers had been traded to any other team, the Miami Dolphins, the San Francisco 49ers, for example, those were probably the two teams that were always rumored to be kind of hovering around Aaron Rodgers. Okay.
Right.
If he had been traded to either one of those teams, we wouldn't be fucking having these conversations. And those teams would be like, oh, greatest trade ever that Miami got Aaron Rodgers. Greatest trade ever that the 49ers got Aaron Rodgers. I am so fucking sick of this. Like, I am sick of this.
I agree with you. Not about the Dolphins, though. I think there would be people that would think that they should have kept Tua.
Fair enough. But I mean,
but not like this.
Teams,
it's not
but
Teddy
it's
Bridgewater.
But it's those teams that people fall in love with, right? It's those teams that are like, they just want to see them do really well. And Miami's a team that everybody's been wanting to see do well for a long time, and they always finish the same spot. 9-8, 8-9, fighting for a playoff spot week 17, week 18 in the NFL. And the thing is, like, Rodgers was always rumored to go to the Niners, but the Packers were never really big on trading him within the NFC. They wanted him out of the NFC.
Right.
Other than that, there weren't really any other teams that I saw off the top of my head that wanted Aaron Rodgers. Those are basically the two that everybody kind of projected. More Rodgers to Miami because of the whole Florida tax thing where he doesn't have to pay taxes or whatever it is. But it's just, these are the type of takes that just bother me. It just goes back to what I said. They believe their own bullshit. They believe their own bullshit. You really wrote this. Bill Barnwell actually wrote this and actually sat there and said, wow, that makes a lot of sense. That's really great. There's no fucking way you could possibly believe that. Like, there's no way.
I mean, Craig, people believe the earth is flat.
I mean, it just gets to the point where
landing was faked.
You know, it's like, if you want the Jets to be a shitty franchise, I get it. Then just come out and say it at this point.
Yeah,
because it's just these nitpicky things about, like, Rodgers going to the Jets. Rodgers really happy with the Jets right now. Like, you know, and listen, it's all like, I think it's all fluff, like a lot of it. It just comes off that way. You know, Rodgers at the Ranger game, Rodgers at the Knick game, Rodgers here, Rodgers there. You know, sometimes, you know, it is what it is. If he's happy in New York, good for him. But it's like, he wants to play here. But it's like, you're looking for anything to criticize this move for the Jets. You're looking for anything, to the point where you're basically sitting there saying that a 30-year-old backup quarterback with knee issues, still with knee issues, I mean, I don't know if his knee is 100% since that injury, but he's a serviceable guy, right? That's what we kind of look at Teddy Bridgewater as.
It's a backup quarterback.
Not great, not bad, just somewhere in the middle. He's able to move the ball, but he's just not a guy you're going to carry. He's not a guy that's going to lead you to a Super Bowl. We all can agree on that.
No, he's a guy that when your quarterback gets hurt and he wins you a game and then he loses next week.
But these takes are just so fucking ridiculous. And like, I can't, like, and I'm watching this. It's a schmuck from ESPN all the time, or CBS Sports, who literally have the worst takes I've ever seen on any planet for any team.
Well,
so
I mean, we both know that personally. So there you go.
Yeah. And finally, number 5, Tiki Barber recently said on the Tiki and Tierney show that the Yankees will have to basically get a new shortstop if Anthony Volpe struggles the rest of the season.
Okay. Why? You can't have a bad year. What if he bats 200, but he has like 25 home runs and like 75 RBIs? Are we cool? Like, what, I don't understand. What if he plays a flawless defense, which he's been really good? He steals a bunch of bases and he has a good on base percentage. What are we deciding is a bad year for a rookie? That's not Aaron Judge or one of these guys. I understand this guy's supposed to be good, but you know what? Some guys takes a minute to hit in Major League Baseball. When you're facing guys, like, it's not like it was 30 years ago where you faced the same guy 3 times in the same game. Anthony Volpe could be getting up 3 times and facing 3 different pitchers, all throwing 99 that drops off a shelf like a crazy person. So just like settle down. Okay. He's fine.
You know, my question is,
I don't have a problem.
What constitutes success here for this guy? Like, I almost feel bad for the guy already, because you have a guy like Tiki Barber basically saying, well, Volpe's only been here for like 30 games and he's not Derek Jeter. So we gotta figure this out at the end of the year. because it's always goes back to this weird narrative that like the Yankees have to be in the market for the next big time player to fill a certain position. Okay. And the thing is,
problem isn't actually from the outside there, though. The problem's not from the outside. The problem is Peraza. So if Peraza is raking at AAA, they may decide to like switch it and see if Peraza can hit and still play defense and send Volpe down. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're just going to stick with him because it's fine. It's working. Look, like we could talk about all day, but the Yankees they'd be in first place in almost every other division in the world, except for the one they're in, where they're in third. Because the teams in front of them are just like have a tick better record. Like stop, everyone, just stop.
But it's like they put so much pressure on these rookies, like right off the bat to be superstars, because it's a case of, Volpe was going to be in a deal to get Luis Castillo last year from the Reds when the Reds were going to trade him and ultimately traded him to the Mariners. And the Yankees didn't want to trade him because the Yankees believe in him. The Yankees think he's going to be an incredible, incredible player. And they just weren't prepared to deal for him or deal him in general. And then it goes back to this whole thing where it's like the kid comes out, the kid works hard during spring training, makes the team out of spring training. And because he's not putting up these elite numbers right off the bat, meanwhile, the Yankees are still winning games, you're already questioning if he's going to be good or not.
He's also getting big hits in big spots. Like he's not like shying away from the moment. The other thing I'll invite you to go look at is we fall in love with home runs. But Judge in the beginning was not a great hitter. He hit home runs. He had a ton of home runs. Don't get me wrong, but he struck out a shit ton. His swing and miss rate chase rate was crazy. I think it was like 25% the first year. It's down to 20 now. He's become a better all-around hitter, but he was not that when he first started. He wasn't batting .310 when he first started. He had home runs, but that's what he does. But now he's become an all-around really great hitter. Give it time. This takes time. Baseball is not football or basketball. It's just not. Guys can't just step in and be great. Now, can they? Of course, it happens, but it doesn't happen as often as you'd think. I mean, you think about guys like Randy Arozarena. Like that dude was good. He's just gotten better and better and better. Like you got to give these guys time to adjust. He's also playing shortstop, which is not an easy position to play anymore because the shifts don't exist. So you have to actually be athletic to do it again. So just everybody just like, please, like at least can we go half a season? Like, can we at least do half a season, Tiki? Like I love Craig. There's nothing better. There's nothing better to me than a former player who's now in the media who's doing this bullshit. That if somebody in Tiki's first season had said, "Hey, Tiki, you've been fumbling a bunch. So do you think you should be benched for somebody else?" He would have lost his mind. So stop, dude. You know what it's like. You saw it. You fumbled more than anybody in the history of the Giants your first couple years until Coughlin fixed it. So stop, dude. Stop, because you weren't great neither your first year.
It's just it gets to a point where it's just like, again, he's batting ninth. He's not carrying he doesn't have to carry the team right now. He's just getting, and the thing is, like you just said, he's got to get reps. He just got to keep playing and playing. And then everybody's going to forget about it. But to sit there, it almost felt like the Yankees are winning. There's not a lot to really complain about right now with the New York Yankees. But you had to find like some weird thing to complain about, and you're going off on Volpe because he's not as good as everybody's making him out to be. And you're just nitpicking and grasping at straws on this one because, again, there is nothing to complain about. Maybe not nothing, but very little to complain about right now with the Yankees. Do you agree?
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, you just want guys to get healthy, and then we'll go from there.
So, all right. So that's it for our trip through New York for the week. It is time now. We're going to get into the NBA Finals shortly. We're going to get into our friendly debates on the fantastic film Revenge of the Nerds shortly. But first, it is the first half of our In Case You Missed It.
I want to do a little I just want to do a little behind the scenes here real quick because we didn't talk about this before the show and I forgot to say it. So for this, In Case You Missed It, this one, I think we should do it where the person answering the question is the only one that answers the question so we can get it going. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, so you want to read
you
it?
Read the question, I'll answer, and then I'll read the question and you answer, but I won't say nothing about it.
Okay, if that's how you feel. All right. Without further ado, Maddie, are you ready? Oh, actually, wait, we got to play the music. Maddie, hit the music. The first 5 topics of the show. Anything goes, all opinions legal, and all opinions matter. And then when we get to the second half, we'll revisit that discussion.
No.
Maddie, are you ready?
Oh!
Okay, number 1. Former Chiefs quarterback Alex Smith was a guest on the Sirius XM Blitz and talked about how defensive coordinators that become head coaches are not good at developing QBs compared to offensive coordinators. Quote, there is a different mentality from my career when you play for an offensive head coach that wants to light up the scoreboard and outscore the opponent versus a defensive coach, when that coach's mentality is, hey, don't screw up, don't turn the ball over, don't put us in a bad situation. End quote. Smith called out Robert Saleh in particular, saying he had no clue how to develop a QB, criticized the Jets head coach for hiring an inexperienced coordinator in Mike LaFleur, and not having a plan in place to support Zach Wilson after he was drafted 2nd overall. Maddie, do you buy what Smith is selling?
I mean, yeah, but we know that, right? Like, the only time you get a defensive head coach who's good at developing a quarterback is when they just let the offensive coordinator do whatever the hell they want, right? But like, if the defensive guy's involved, it's never going to go well, because defensive coordinators as head coaches are by nature just conservative. They think their defense can stop anybody. So why am I going to throw interceptions? Why am I going to take shots? Why am I going to take chances? Look at Vrabel. Vrabel's the prime example of this down in Tennessee. Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Defense, defense, defense. Sometimes we'll pass it, maybe here and there. So, yes, of course I'm buying what he's selling, but he just eviscerated the Jets. Holy shit. He just went after Saleh up and in. Here's the thing. I don't think Zach Wilson can be fixed. I don't think Zach Wilson was good. I think Zach Wilson plays a schoolyard style of football that doesn't translate to the NFL when you're his size. That's what I think. And so it could be Saleh's fault, but I don't think it is.
He wasn't really necessarily wrong about Saleh, because Saleh didn't. I think Saleh should have probably brought in somebody when Zach got drafted. But
Agreed.
Again, he's not. I mean, I kind of agree, because if you think of the quarterbacks like Mahomes, he's got Andy Reid as his coach. Burrow has Zach Taylor, who was a quarterback coach in with the Rams. Then you have Jalen Hurts, has Nick Sirianni as his coach, his offensive coordinator. And then before that, Hurts had Doug Peterson, who was an offensive guy. Definitely makes a lot of sense if you think about it. And if you take even further, you go to a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who has Doug Peterson as his coach this year, who knows how to develop a quarterback. So yeah, his in my opinion, he's definitely, I think he's 100% right, to be really honest.
Number 2, Raiders receiver Devontae Adams doesn't sound thrilled with the 2023 Raiders offseason so far, and is not a big fan of the direction the team is headed in. Adams told The Ringer, the front office thinks this is the best bet for us to put us in a position to be urgent. We don't see eye to eye on what we think is best for us right now. I'm going to have to buy into this and try to be as optimistic as possible. It's something that's the reality now. The Raiders released Derek Carr, Adams' best friend, and replaced him with Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy G failed the physical back in March. He needs foot surgery and may not even be ready for the season start, as he will need to pass another physical. Adams did admit the Raiders listened to his opinions on personnel decisions, something he said he appreciates. Will the situation with Adams get worse before it gets better?
Honestly, it really depends on if Jimmy G starts the season or is even on the team, because he has to pass a physical. You know, in the Raiders' defense, they listen to Adams. They don't have to take his advice. But you kind of see why he's kind of pissed off in a way, because I think he went to Vegas thinking Carr was going to be there for the long haul. And that was pretty much the reason why he went to Vegas, was to play alongside Derek Carr. And then a year later, they released him. Now there's this issue with Garoppolo where he has a foot injury because he already failed the physical. So Adams is watching this and he's like, what the hell is going on here? And what are we going to do about a quarterback if you have to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo? Because if he fails another physical, he's pretty much done. Where it becomes a little foggy for Adams is he just signed like a huge contract to stay in Vegas for like $140 million. Plus the moves they made kind of make them look like Patriots West, because they brought in Brian Hoyer to back up Garoppolo, and they brought in Jacoby Myers as well. So I think it'll ultimately come down to this, which it always comes down to in the NFL. If the Raiders are winning, Adams won't really care as much and he'll be happy. But if they are losing, and a part of it is because Garoppolo gets hurt, for example, and misses a few weeks during the season or whatever, then you can rest assured that Devontae Adams is going to cause a lot of problems for that organization because he's definitely not thrilled, just judging by his comments with the way things are going right now. All right, number 3, Pat McAfee recently agreed to terms on a 5-year, $85 million deal for his show to move from FanDuel to ESPN. But with Disney, which owns ESPN, going through major cost-cutting and layoffs, the announcement of the deal did not sit well with former employees. Howie Schwab, host of Stump the Schwab, questioned the timing of the deal during an interview with Front Office Sports when he said, they're paying Aikman, Buck, Stephen A. Smith, and McAfee, and then you're going to lay people off? Kind of weird. This is being labeled as a win for ESPN, but does it feel more like a loss since people are losing their jobs?
Well, I'm starting to wonder who's going to do all the work. Like, who's going to cut all the sound and cut all the film? Is Aikman in the room, like, cutting? Like, what? Like, who's doing all the actual work? And the other thing, too, is that, like, you better get ready, McAfee, because look at Stephen A. Smith. That dude is on, like, there's 24-hour sports network. He's on about 12 of them. So you're going to be on the other 12 doing other shit. Like, that's how they have to do it. Like Mike Greenberg. That dude's on all day, too, on radio and television. It's crazy. So, of course, it makes no fucking sense, Craig, to hire somebody at $85 million over 5 years. And you can take that $85 million and hire a shit ton of people for 5 years, like, that can do the grunt work and do the crap work and do the stuff that makes ESPN good, not the same faces over and over and over and over and over and over. Like, if you turn on ESPN,
Maddie and I, man.
Yeah, if you turn on ESPN and you don't see Mike Greenberg or you don't see Stephen A. Smith, something horrible has happened. Something horrible has happened.
Take it from Maddie and I, who used to work for a radio station. Those guys that cut the audio and do the editing and stuff, if you don't have those guys, it's going to be tough to figure, because when they need stuff on the fly, especially if there's something breaking, like, let's say, hypothetically, hey, the Knicks make a trade for Joel Embiid. They're going to want audio kind of like that. They're going to want it right away. And if you cut all those guys, but then pay McAfee or whatever as much as you want, your station's going to suffer, because those little guys, somebody actually said it really perfectly, but I can't remember the comment. But now the latest rumor is McAfee's trying to recruit Shannon Sharp to go to ESPN. So get ready for another. He's leaving undisputed with Skip Bayless. Yeah, but think about how much money that's going to cost to get Shannon Sharp there too. So it's like, you're just going to be cutting more people.
All right, number 4, Madison Bumgarner's tenure with the Diamondbacks was anything but good, according to Zach Buchanan of The Athletic. Bumgarner had issues with pitching coach Dan Herron and openly admitted to ignoring the scouting reports that Herron was giving him. Bumgarner and Herron did not speak to each other for the rest of the pitcher's time with the team, which was about 2 years. Several sources told The Athletic that Bumgarner had a tough time accepting that he was no longer the pitcher he used to be, and he wanted to do things while the coaches felt he needed to adjust. Bumgarner was released earlier this season after posting a 10.26 ERA through the first 4 starts in Arizona. He's still owed $34 million from the Diamondbacks and is not drawing interest from any teams currently as a free agent. Does Madison Bumgarner get another chance to pitch for a team this season?
Yeah, I think he will. I just think at this point he's making $34 million from the Diamondbacks, so I highly doubt he has to take his time. I think he can take his time to figure out what he wants to do, see like how the season goes. This is a pretty interesting story. Like, I actually read it, and this the whole thing about not having any communication with your pitching coach for 2 years is pretty bad. So I think it does paint Bumgarner in a tough light, and maybe teams see that, and I'm sure they talk to each other about him and everything like that. But I think if there is a team that really needs a starting pitcher, or at least just needs like a depth guy, pretty much, you could do a lot worse than Madison Bumgarner, and going to a new team may actually benefit him at the end of the day, even though his season in Arizona was not great, obviously, to start, but he's been pretty bad overall. I'm a little surprised, to be honest, that the Mets never just inquired about him, especially when they were going through the injuries. But as a whole, I do think he will get a shot to pitch again. I just don't know where it's going to be. But this article definitely could turn people off, could turn different teams off. They don't want to deal with a guy who's just going to tell your pitching coach, "Yeah, piss off. I know what I'm doing." And that could be a big problem with it too. But I do think he will get a shot to pitch again this season. All right, number 5, James Harden will reportedly opt out of his deal with the Sixers that will pay him $35.6 million for next season. According to Bleacher Report, Harden will be looking for a long-term deal and will only entertain suitors that present a competitive roster and the basketball freedom for the star to be himself. Harden has been widely rumored to return to Houston to play for the Rockets. For the second year in a row in Philly, Harden was a non-factor in a do-or-die game for the Sixers and described his relationship with former head coach Doc Rivers as just okay. Rivers has since been fired and replaced with former Raptors coach Nick Nurse. Maddie, if Harden leaves the Sixers, is their playoff window officially closed?
No, because they have Embiid. It's always been about Embiid. They lose Embiid, then it's closed. But they can find somebody to approximate Harden. Harden now. It's not like they got rid of Harden in prime in Houston. They got rid of fat James Harden that don't do nothing. So it's fine. So they can get somebody to do that. So yeah, I'm not worried about that. It's Embiid. They got to hold on to Embiid. If they hold on to Embiid, they're good. If they don't hold on to Embiid, they're not so good.
I don't know if you happen to see Nick Nurse's, any clips from Nick Nurse's introductory press conference, but some reporter was hitting him over the head with Harden questions, and he was trying so hard to dodge it. He was trying really hard to dodge the bullet of because they were basically asked him point blank, do you want James Harden back? And he went into a whole word salad before he finally just said, yeah, I'd love to have him back. But it was basically you could tell he was very uncomfortable answering the question about James Harden. So, all right, the first half of In Case You Missed It is over. We'll do the rest of it at the end of the show. And before we get into our friendly debate, we're going to talk a little bit about, you just feel the need to keep playing the Ultimate Warrior theme song?
I'm going to play it until it's over.
We're going to get into some NBA Finals talk. Game 2 is tonight between the Nuggets and the Heat. Nuggets have a 1-0 lead. Not really much you could say outside of, Jokic was Jokic, and that's pretty much all I'll leave it at. But go ahead, Matt.
I don't know how you feel about this, Craig. To me, Vlade Divac wasn't the best center I've ever seen, but he was the best passing center I'd ever seen. Now there have been some great passing big men. Don't get me wrong. And I know people say Tim Duncan, but I always considered Tim Duncan a 4, not a 5, even though I know he played center a lot. But to me, he was always a 4 because I remember him with David Robinson when Robinson played the 5. There's literally nobody better I've ever seen pass the basketball than this dude from a big man perspective. It's crazy. He had 10 assists at halftime. He had 10 assists at halftime, not 10 rebounds. If it had been a double-double where it'd been 10 points, 10 rebounds, I'd be okay, he's a big guy. That's his job. That's what he's supposed to do, right? No. It was 10 points, 10 assists. It's unstoppable, right? Because the thing that makes Jokic so great is that his shooting percentage is so high that you have to play him. It's not like when Shaq was used to be there. If he stood at the top of the key, you could just play off Shaq, right? Because he's not hitting that shot consistently. But Jokic can. So as soon as you come up on him, one of those guys is making a back cut, or cutting to the basket or cutting out to the corner 3 or whatever on the other side of the floor, and he's looking one way and dinging it the other, and all of a sudden, you're down 10 because the guy's a friggin' wizard, man. It's crazy to watch. He looks like a pile of mashed potatoes running down the floor, and he's one of the best passing big men I've ever seen in my life. It is crazy how good that dude is.
In your opinion, do you think that the Heat right now, because the Nuggets are very healthy, they don't really have any major injuries or anything like that, right, but is this one of those times where they really miss Tyler Hero? He didn't play game 1, obviously. No one has any idea when he's coming back or if he's coming back. But
I mean, you can't tell me that now you miss him, right? You beat the Celtics, the Knicks, and the set.
No,
they
were in the play-in. They were in the play-in,
right? So I mean, look, I get it. You think there's always an answer somewhere, but here's the answer: make shots. Look. The Heat all year have not been a good shooting team. They just haven't been. Now you have guys like Jimmy Butler and Bam who get close to the basket shots, high percentage shots, but their 3-point percentage has not been awesome this year. And they're just regressing to the mean. They were really good in those series against the Knicks and the Celtics. And in that first game, you saw what it was like. And actually in the couple games against the Celtics where they lost, you saw what the regular season was like for them. That's what it is. You can't make shots. Like, would Tyler Hero help? Of course, the guy can score you 30 on any given night. Of course, he's going to help. But who's not getting minutes then? Caleb Martin, Max Strus. The defense gets worse when Tyler Hero's on the floor. Like, there are pluses and minuses to it. So I don't think it would make a huge difference. I just think right now, Jokic is just so. It's totally different than Jimmy Butler or Bam Adebayo, but what he does is almost, you can't approximate it with anybody else. And I don't know how you guard it either. Because if you play off him, he can shoot and score at will. And if you play on him, he's going to pass you to death because there's always somebody going to be open that's cutting to the basket or getting ready open for a three. I don't know how you do it.
All right. Well, there you have it. So game 2 is tonight. Again, I think it's 8:30 tonight. Heat really need this one. And it's 8. Okay. Yeah. So 8:00 tonight on game 2. All right. So let's jump into our friendly debate. And we were going to do this last week, but unfortunately my technical difficulties screwed the pooch. Woo-hoo. So we're going to do it now. So basically, for all the people who don't listen, there is a fantastic 1980s movie called Revenge of the Nerds. And it's pretty much, as Matt basically said point blank, it's a movie that could never be made in this climate that we currently live in. And actually, let me rephrase that. I don't want to say it couldn't be made, but it would be the most dumbed down version of a movie by far.
Yes, I'm not saying the idea of the movie where sort of weaker people overcome stronger people using their intelligence. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the invasion of privacy with the hidden cameras in the sorority where the guys are just watching them sleep naked all night. I'm talking about the date rape at the end where he pretends to be another guy that she's going on. Or like just the abject bullying that happens through the entire movie. Like the bullying that happens through the entire movie. And
if you want to see
football players, like it never would happen.
Okay, so if you want to see a great YouTube video on this movie, there is a channel called Legal Eagle. And basically it's a lawyer and people send him movies to watch. And he will tell you like what they do wrong that's a crime and how many years they get. Okay? And he goes through the whole movie. So, and he makes a really good point. I never picked up on it until I watched this video. So in the movie, in the very beginning, basically the premise of the movie is you have two dorks who are going to this school, Adams College.
Nerds, Greg. It's called Revenge of the Nerds. They're not dorks. They're nerds.
So two nerds, excuse me, get accepted to go to Adams College, and they're basically rooming together. And what they're trying to do is they get dropped off and they have to carry this big trunk across campus because the father drops them off in like the furthest part of campus. So awesome. As they're... So they're literally carrying this huge ass trunk with all this crap on top of it. And they're walking past the Alpha Beta house, which is basically the athletes. And the opening scene, you see Ogre, who's like the big linebacker. He's hanging a guy from his ankles over the side of their house, which by the way, looks like a fucking mansion, like where they live, because they're the athletes, they're the football players and all that stuff. They're the jocks. So the lawyer is watching this and he goes, we literally see a murder 5 minutes into the movie, because when Ogre sees the nerds walking with the trunk, he starts yelling nerds and he drops the guy from, he goes, that has to be at least 40 feet from like where they're standing to the ground. And he goes, if that guy's not dead, he's got to be paralyzed for like the rest of his life because there's nothing there. So
in fact, Craig, hold on.
Oh no!
That's the guy falling. Hold on.
Oh no!
That's the guy falling. Dead. Totally dead. Yeah, I was thinking this. We watched it for the show, and I was like, "Holy shit, that guy's dead!"
And it just killed me. And I was like, "Oh my god, the guy makes a great point." So here is the friendly debate for the thing, because the Alpha Beta start out as like, you know, they're the ones that are bullying the nerds and everything, and then the nerds fight back. But the nerds resort to, as Matt said, their intelligence. They know how to set up cameras where nobody can see them. Although, with all due respect, the way that the cameras are set up, with the cameras with the fucking periscope, because he's got the periscope on the camera. There's no
Girl
way.
doing her hair. There's a fucking camera. Daddy, I'm in the mirror. What's wrong with you?
So here's the question, Maddie, the friendly debate of this
Do it.
show. When all is said and done, and we're going to go over the things that each fraternity does, because eventually what happens is the nerds become a fraternity, but they become part of a black fraternity charter, which is Lambda, Lambda, Lambda. And the reason why it is because they don't have a chapter at the college that the nerds go to, which is Adams.
Right.
That's why they got to see them. So here's the question. At the end of the movie, which fraternity looks the most like scumbaggy and just outright bad? The Alpha Betas or Lambda, Lambda, Lambda? And you have to pick one and I will pick the other one. So I'm going to let you pick one.
It has to be the Alpha Betas. I mean, like, even though the Lambdas do some objectionable things, like the Betas are still the ones that, like, first of all, they kick them out of the dorms, literally throwing people through windows like it's fucking Roadhouse. Okay. Then like they do the thing where the initiation with Lambda, Lambda, where the pies, and with you know that sort of thing.
Oh yeah,
or when they
wait, there's a sorority of overweight women called the Omega Moos. That's horrible. That's horrible.
It's
all goes back to what we just said, and that is this movie's never being made in this climate.
Or the sort of 70s funk that plays when the Lambdas come out to protect Gilbert at the end.
Oh yeah.
And it's all these just black guys just lined up, and you're like, oh God, it's so racist right now. But anyway, so alphas, like the alphas, look, they get messed with as well. But in the end, the Lambdas win fair and square. The alphas then overreact, trash their house, which to me is the final straw. Now, I don't think that the Lambdas come off looking great because they do some shit too, but their stuff was more like pranky, whereas the alphas was more like destruction of property. So it's definitely the alphas.
Okay. The reason why I'm going to kind of hint towards Lambda, Lambda, Lambda is because number one, you put cameras unknowingly into a sorority house without their permission. So I'm assuming that's some kind of like voyeurism or invasion of privacy or something. Plus you have videotape of these girls, you know, getting naked pretty much when they wake up in the morning or when they're taking a shower and everything. So that's got to count for something. You broke into their house to steal their underwear during a panty raid, which again,
classic panty raid. Come on, Craig. Okay. We've all been there.
so there's that. You just mentioned it before, the date rape scene when he takes Stan's mask and pretends to be Stan so he could have sex with Betty. Okay. I mean, what else? I mean, like that alone is pretty bad in general.
The pies.
Oh, the pies with the whipped cream with the picture of Betty underneath, putting liquid heat on the jocks of the Alpha Betas. That's assault.
That one, but I'm okay with that one because they got messed with too. You know what I'm saying? Like they got essentially tarred and feathered. Not tarred, but they were, you know, glued and feathered. So I'm good with that. Look, both sides are not great.
Would you say it's a push?
Oh, the alphas are worse because A, they started it, and B, I don't consider the date rape part of it as part of the fraternity thing. That to me is a separate issue, a whole separate issue. Like he's going to jail by himself for that. Like the whole fraternity's not going to jail for that, but they could all go to jail.
But he's still affiliated with Lambda, Lambda, Lambda though. So
I understand. But you know, but then Ogre killed a guy.
It's like literally dropped him with witnesses, by the way. Like he couldn't fight that if he wanted to because everybody was there.
The nerds were there. There was a car. It was the guy. I mean, people were chanting nerds. So yeah, look. In the end, I think it's the Alpha Betas. They burned down their own house.
Arson.
We burned down our house. Yeah, no, it was arson because the guy was doing the fireballs.
When they're roasting marshmallows, like Ogre and the two girls are roasting marshmallows in like the pit.
Look, it's the Alpha Betas. The Lambdas are not good people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. But the alphas are worse.
See, the funniest part is when they're up overnight and they're still watching like the pies,
Yeah.
like on the video, and like Lewis is like, yeah, he's like, Dooley, throw me a beer, so he pours it in the
Oh,
Cheerios just to
gross.
watch. Or the part like there are so many funny things about that movie, and there's also little things that you pick up on, like when they're doing the belching contest and Booger throws a cigarette into Ogre's beer,
Yeah.
and you hear
Yeah.
it like, and you hear like sizzle out at the end, or when they say, "Oh yeah, they Lamar's limp wristed throwing style during the javelin throw,"
Yeah.
right?
And the
So,
javelin just bouncing.
yeah, it's like, and you hear it go like, "Wee wee 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 wee," like it's
This is one of my favorites, though. This is one of my favorites.
I thought I was looking at my mother's old douchebag, but that's in Ohio.
yeah, which leads me to that scene, right? So who fucking sells a house like that and says, "Okay, we're gonna rent the house, but it looks like shit. There's cobwebs everywhere." And then
Because
we
Craig needed a montage of them cleaning it up.
I know,
Come
but it's
on,
just like,
man, that's how
but like,
movies work.
like, but it's like they get to
Even
the house.
Rocky had a montage.
But I'm saying they get to the house and they have like the the windows are boarded up. They walk in the house, there's nothing but cobwebs everywhere, and they use the same refrigerator that looks like it's been sitting there for like because it's been abandoned.
And I'm not 100% sure, but I think the music they use in the montage from the Clean the House and Revenge of the Nerds is the same music they use in the montage in oh man, damn it. Why am I forgetting the name of this movie? Dang nabbit, I can't remember. Real Genius, when they're fixing the laser at the end. I think it's the same song.
It might be. I don't know, but I mean, in this climate, like just from when they all get
it's also
high
1984, man. Shit was different in 1984. It's okay. They could sell a house like that. No big deal.
But it just the movie itself is just there's so many things like
terrible.
and I think when I was watching that legal, like the lawyer, because like you can give him like whatever movie, like somebody gave him Charlie and the Chocolate, like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and he basically said that, right? And he basically said like he goes when the scene when Veruca Salt like steps on the thing and it makes the egg, and he goes, a jury would convict Willy Wonka of manslaughter like in 5 minutes, like pretty much. And he said, "Oh, I go remember the scene where they have to sign the contract, but you can't see the wording at the bottom; it's all like faded, like somebody rubbed their hands on it." He goes, no child can enter a contract like that. He's like, Willy Wonka would do like 100 years or something like that. Like
we should send that legal dude Porky's.
Yeah. And he goes, and when it was all said and done, he's like, yeah, Louis Skolnick would do 75 years in jail. And like Ogre would do like 25 for murder. But it's like, because Louis had all these other charges. Like it wasn't just like, it wasn't just like the gay rape one. So we both agree in a way that Matt says it's the alpha betas. I say a little bit lambda. But now that I'm leaning more towards a push because ultimately
you can't have a push.
But the thing is, like when they bring the pigs into the party and then they, in that type of stuff.
Old McDonald had a farm.
But so here's my ultimate question. So Matt, what I want you to do is, so we have an audio clip from the movie, and it's towards the end when the coach of the Alpha Beta is played by John Goodman, by a very young John Goodman.
Oh, fantastic. John Goodman as the coach is wonderful.
When the coach goes,
classic.
When the coach goes, well, my boys say it was electrical. You got to believe them. Like, because he's like, we got a big game coming up. I don't have time for this shit. Right. So there's a scene after there's a big talent show because the whole point of the premise of the movie is whoever wins the carnival takes control of the Greek council. So then the nerds will actually get a fair shake onto things, whereas they're getting screwed over by the Alpha Betas. So after the Alpha Betas lose the Greek carnival, by the way, as I should have just said, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie, you probably might want to, but who cares?
It's from 1984. You don't get a spoiler alert. Get the fuck out of here.
So after the Alpha Betas lose, John Goodman brings them into the locker room and he does this speech. So Matt, I want you to play the audio for the speech.
When you were a baby in your crib, your father looked down at you. He had but one hope. Someday my son will grow to be a man. Well, look at you now. You just got your asses whipped by a bunch of goddamn nerds. Nerds! Well, if I was you, I'd do something about it. I would get up and redeem myself in the eyes of my father, my maker, and my coach. Well, let's get those nerds! 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 What are we waiting for? When you were a baby in your crib.
There
Now,
you go. Nerds.
that speech motivated that team so much to just destroy the Nerds' house and basically get arrested for destruction of property at the very least. So with that said, so what I had Matt do was we just played that speech. Now, Matt,
Yes.
please play the Robert Loggia necessary roughness speech at halftime.
Here we go.
Your father looked down at you.
Oh, wrong one. Damn it. Sorry. Here we go.
Jesus
Sorry.
Christ.
Not a goddamn thing's been working for us. Like this goddamn suit doesn't work for me. And this stinking tie. And this goddamn shirt. It doesn't work for me. You know how to play winning hard-nosed football? You play football like De Niro played football. A guy who gave his life for this football team. He was a 140-pound halfback. And he played like a goddamn wild man. No, like a goddamn rampaging beast. And that's the way you're gonna do it. You go out there, you tear their fucking heads off, and you shit down their necks. Let us pray.
So now the question is,
It really is the let us pray. Like out of all the things, like I know it's just that like that little like shift in the moment there. It's just wonderful. I love it.
so it begs the question as we piggyback on another friendly debate. Which speech motivates you more?
I think the Loggia speech, just because it's less about hating other people and more just about firing you up to play football. And I don't really respond well to the like, let's go kill these other people because they're lesser than me. But like in a,
you could
in a
also
sporting,
okay, but you could
No,
also
but in a
argue the
sport-
Goodman speech. The Goodman speech gets them fired up, and while I understand it has to be like nerds, the fact is they still lost. So
yes,
they're going to be more fired up to avenge that loss. Just like in a way, Texas State would be fired up to get back in the game against the Texas Colts, even though in that game Blake was getting destroyed.
right.
But if we take it from a football perspective, maybe not necessarily like the whole destruction of property and assault perspective, what do you think?
Here's where the Goodman speech has the edge. The Coach Wally speech just starts out at 100 and just keeps going from there. The Goodman speech starts out where you're not really sure if he's going to start yelling, right? He's like, you know, when you were a baby in your crib. And it's like kind of scarier when he's just kind of lumbering because he's just pacing back and forth really fast when he's saying it. And he's just like, and then he just starts with this measured tone and you're like, oh shit. And then he builds from there. And then you get going. To me, it's always Wally though. And the reason it's always Wally is because the let us pray at the end. Like I wish I was in that room because it would just make me laugh every time.
Like imagine if you're Stan Gable, right? From Revenge of the Nerds, the star quarterback, and you just lost the Greek, the carnival to the Nerds.
Sure.
And then you have your coach coming by on like a little cart.
Jazzy Scooter.
Yeah, basically saying, I want to see you and the other girls in the locker room now. You have no idea what you're walking into. You could be walking into a freaking buzzsaw for all you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, and you're just like, and then on top of that, the guy lost his girl. I mean, I'm surprised. Like, I guess it's not justifiable by any stretch to destroy their house, but I understand because, like, he's probably like, "Holy crap, we just lost."
Oh no,
to
I
these
get
guys."
it. It's a
And
great speech.
And then my girlfriend just dumped me for one of those guys. Like, that's enough to make a crazy guy nuts at this
But
point.
then there's this.
Let us pray.
So the power
us
of
pray.
prayer. So the power of prayer is basically what's selling you on
not the-
Loggia's speech.
No, it's not the power of prayer. It's the power of using prayer as a comedic punchline after saying rip off their heads and shit down their necks, because the two things are dichotomous. If you're really religious, you would never want to rip anybody's head off and shit down their neck, because it would be against what God would want you to do, or Jesus would want you to do, or whatever religion you follow. You know, religion would tell you to do that. It'd be crazy. And so when he says that and he goes, let us pray, it just makes me laugh, because I just think of all the shit that's going on. It makes me laugh. That's all.
But wouldn't the coach in Revenge of the Nerds get in trouble because, like, technically he kind of like, he was so frustrated. He's like, oh, well, I suggest you do something about it. I would do something about it. And then he kind of triggers them to go insane and like basically.
There's plausible deniability there. He said, I want you to do something about it, which he could say was, I wanted them to prepare next year better for the Greek Council and winning, or for the
Keep
the
talking. I gotta
Carnival.
show my camera for a minute.
So that's what I would do. Like, that's what I would say if I was Goodman and they came at me with that crap. But look, bold speeches are good, man. Bold speeches are good. I just prefer the Loja speech because he's crazy. And he talks about Ed Gennaro played like a goddamn wild man. It just always makes me laugh. And when I think of him ripping off the suit because he hates it, it's just funny. The whole thing is funny.
But we never picked up on the fact that literally Ogre murders somebody in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
No, I've known that for years. It always makes me laugh. Always. I love that bit. It's fantastic.
So if you haven't seen it,
not to mention, by the way, the amount of people who would have died of alcohol poisoning during the tricycle race. Okay.
Oh my God.
We're
20
talking about
beers?
that. Yeah.
20
beers while riding a tricycle in the hot sun. Just say.
The best part of that is in the last lap when they're playing the Asian music as Takashi's coming around the edge. And he goes, this counters all effects of alcohol in your system. He gives him 20 pills. Yeah. How does Takashi not die from that? Isn't that like considered an overdose?
It's not a great film. Like, don't watch it and learn life lessons from it.
Yeah. And then you just watch it.
The Nerds.
You watch it to be entertained, but you do not follow, because for guys that are really smart, they do a lot of stupid shit in this movie. For guys with huge IQs and all that stuff, they are dumb as shit in this movie, because committing date rape, alcohol poisoning, and on top of that, Takashi would have been dead of a drug overdose. Booger's picking on high school girls trying to get a date for their party. I mean, you could go on and on with all the shit. You could go on and on with all the shit that they do in this movie that's like just not only illegal, but just immoral. It's immoral, Maddie.
Or like, or this is one of my favorites. Though. This is one of the good ones.
See that man over there? We arrested him for mopery.
What's mopery?
Mopery is exposing yourself to a blind person.
Like, what?
There's no reason. There's no reason for that. There's literally no reason for that. They go to the police station to report that their house had gotten broken into, and the guy there's no reason to say that, but it was funny.
And that's the only reason why you watch the movie, is just to be entertained, because please don't follow the horrible examples, not only by lambda, but by the alpha betas, because you will die. And we'll just leave it at that. Right, Maddie?
Indeed.
All right. So that does it. We'll have another friendly debate next week. But for now, it is time to close the show as only we can with the second half of In Case You Missed It. Now, in case you missed it, part 2 closes out this show. We have 5 additional topics to ramble on about. All opinions legal, all opinions matter. Right, Matt?
No.
All right, Maddie. Kick it off, but first, are you ready?
Oh! I didn't want to wait. I couldn't wait.
All right, go ahead. You're up.
Ho! I just had to say ho again because it was worked out the timing. Le'Veon Bell was a guest on the Steel Here podcast and admitted that he did not handle things well with the Steelers and may have made a mistake signing with the Jets during the 2019 offseason. Bell sat out the entire 2018 season after failing to come to terms on a new contract with the Steelers and said he only signed with the Jets because of the guaranteed money. Bell proceeded to once again rip Adam Gase on the podcast, saying the former head coach didn't know what he was doing and that Gase's offense confused Sam Darnold and ruined him. Bell has been out of the league since 2021 and dabbled in boxing and music. He's hoping he can return to Pittsburgh, play a few carries this season, and retire as Steeler. Whether right or wrong on Gase, is Bell attacking him once again to stay relevant?
Absolutely. I mean, come on. It gets to the point where, look, we all got, as a Jet fan, I had to live through the Adam Gase era. I could have told you he should have never been hired in the first place. I could have gone on and on. But it's all gone now. It's over. The chapter is closed. It's time to move on. And the thing is like now it's just going to be one of those things where he goes on a podcast or goes on a show and they're going to ask him about Adam Gase again. And he's just going to talk about it again because that's all he has. He doesn't have anything else. No team wants him and nobody wants to spar with him in the ring. So what else does he have left at this point? And as for the Steelers, not for nothing, you purposely sat out because you didn't like the contract we offered you. Yet you have the nerve now to sit here and hope that we sign you just so you can retire a Steeler. If I was the Steelers, I'd be like, fuck off, dude. I was like, you decided to go to the probably not, but that's exactly what I would do. I'm just saying that's exactly what I would do. We know that. I mean, they'll definitely probably honor his request in some shape or form. But look, we all went through the Adam Gase era. We knew he was a terrible coach. We knew the Jets shouldn't have hired him. But if you're constantly going on these podcasts, and it's not just him, it's other guys, like Robbie Anderson's done it a few times, and Jamal Adams has done it a few times. We know he was a terrible coach. You're not telling us something different here, okay? But I'm also not going to sit there and blame Gase as the only reason why Sam Darnold was a failure. Sam Darnold was just a bad quarterback too. Like some of the throws were just unacceptable for a guy who was the number 3 overall pick in that draft. So while yes, Gase definitely played a role, I'm not going to make Gase the only reason and give Sam a pass. Unfortunately, this is what he's going to do because it's the only way he is going to stay relevant. So yeah, as long as he gets a platform and as long as they ask him about Adam Gase, Le'Veon Bell will continue to make news because of a coach who, in my opinion at this point, is starting to live rent-free in Bell's head because the guy just can't stop talking about him, like plain and simple. All right, the Washington Commanders' attempt to trademark the Commanders' name has been denied by the USPTO, and it's possible they may have to change their team name again. The trademark was denied because it could be confused with the Commanders' Classic football game played each year between Air Force and Army, which is already trademarked. It was also denied due to an already pending application from DC native Martin McCauley, who filed the trademarks when trying to guess team names. 2 of the multiple trademarks McCauley submitted were for the Washington Space Commanders and Washington Wolf Commanders. That played a role in denying the Washington football franchise the Commander name. Washington could try and sign a coexistence agreement with McCauley, who did tell the Washington Post back in 2020 that he would turn over any trademarks the team may need at no cost. Maddie, is this a blessing in disguise for the Commanders to come up with a better name?
Yeah, they should do it anyway. It shouldn't come down to this. They should change it anyway because you don't want Dan Snyder stink on this team anymore. Get him out of there. And if that means go back to Washington football team, that was good. Everybody liked Washington football.
I love that.
I
must be one of the, I love that name. It was just weird when they would do. It was just weird when they do highlights where they say, "Oh, the Jets are taking on the football team." That just looked a little weird.
Washington football team, but at the same time, just go back or just change it. But you have to change it because you cannot allow Dan Snyder's last act as owner to basically be to rename the team when he didn't even do the due diligence to see if the patent existed. Give even a check. He just assumed nobody would know the Commanders. Also, I didn't know. I know that Air Force and Army play every year, but I didn't know it was a Commander Classic football game. I've never even heard that before. So I didn't even know that was a thing. But yes, they should just change the name anyway. Just change it. Just change it. Don't even get in with this crap. Just change it. That's all.
Good.
Number 8. Woof. Let me just check the music. Next good. For the first time since the league started playing regular season games overseas, the Jaguars will play back-to-back home games in London. One in Wembley Stadium and the other at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Commissioner Roger Goodell mentioned the possibility of Jaguars potentially playing 3 games in London back-to-back in 2024, and also brought up the possibility that 4 teams could be created for a European division. It's highly unlikely the league could convince 4 teams to move overseas, but since the Jaguars play in London every year, it's conceivable they'd be one of the teams that make up the permanent move. The other teams would most likely be added by expansion. How badly do you think Roger Goodell would like to see the NFL football played overseas on a weekly basis?
I think this has been his dream for like quite some time because he knows he generates like so much revenue. And the Jaguars are a willing participant because I think they want to move there. I think the Khans want to move the team eventually, and I think that they're going to get – this is where they're – I guess they're famous or they're popular or whatever it is, but you're not going to get a European division. That's the issue. You know, on past Polar Opposite shows before we came back, we kind of went over this subject, and you had made a really good point, Matt, where you said, how do you do the scheduling? That's the issue, because if you only have one team in London – how do you expect these teams to fly back and forth, deal with the jet lag, and deal with all that? And while the European division sounds interesting, it's been done before. It's been done with NFL Europe, and it was a failure. I don't think you'll get people to go to the games, but I think you're going to have a hard time recruiting players to go there. Recruiting, unless free agents make a crazy amount of money. I mean, I don't know what the exchange rate is when it comes to millions of dollars in London compared to the United States. But I think for a while, I think the more the Jaguars cave into this stuff, the more Roger Goodell is really going to try to make a European division in the NFL. I think the tough part is going to be he's going to have a very difficult time getting people to play there. Not to mention you have games in Germany, you have games in England. They're not doing a game in Mexico this year, but I feel like they're playing somewhere else this year. But I can't really remember. And he's also trying to branch out to places like France and China. And like, we don't even know if they even want China. Maybe might want football there, but I don't think France does. I think France doesn't want anything to do with it. But as long as the Jaguars are a willing participant in going to England every year, then Roger Goodell's dream is going to stay alive until they just decide they don't want to do it anymore. All right, next up, Guardians outfielder Will Brennan issued an apology on Twitter for accidentally killing a bird due to his line drive single in a 3-0 win over the White Sox. Brennan made it short and sweet by tweeting, "I'm truly sorry at PETA and bird enthusiasts. An unfortunate sacrifice." This is not the first time as a bird has felt the wrath of a Cleveland hitter, as Pedro Serrano hit a bird in the 9th inning and was tagged out after he ran into right field to check on it in a 4-3 loss to the Chicago White Sox in Major League 2. This is also the second bird to die at the hands of a major leaguer in less than a week, as Diamondbacks pitcher Zach Gallen struck and killed a bird with a warm-up pitch in Oakland. Matt, is it time for birds to change their flight plan to avoid certain death?
I mean, this has happened before. Like, I remember,
Randy
Gabe
Johnson.
Winfield hit a bird. Randy Johnson famously hit a bird. Like, this has happened before. I mean, I just don't understand what birds are doing. You're smarter than that. You should be smarter than that. You came from dinosaurs, according to Jurassic Park. And I believe everything I see in movies. So just do it. Why you get hit by balls? If you see guys throwing balls and swinging bats, don't fly near it. Maybe, just maybe. I mean, I'm spitballing here, but maybe.
All right, Maddie, I believe we have audio of the post-game show of that Serrano incident. Do you have it up?
We do.
Well, the Indians drop a tough one, 4-3, as Pedro Serrano doubles off a pigeon and then is tagged out administering CPR before the tying run could score. It's a funny game, eh, Monty? Well, at least the bird survived. Who cares? It's a rat with wings.
He's not wrong. It is indeed a rat with wings. A rat
And I'm sorry.
with wings. There we go. Hold on.
Major League 2 is a very highly underrated movie, by the way.
Oh, it's fantastic. They tried to slip us Omar Epps in there. It's crazy.
All right, last one.
Number 10, NFL owners voted in favor of flexing games in or out of Thursday night football for 24 owners approving the measure. The games are limited only to weeks 13 through 17, and the decision must be made no later than 28 days in advance. The decision has been heavily criticized by players as well as owners, including John Mara, one of 8 who voted against the measure, saying it's abusive. Fans may be the biggest loser in this decision as they make plans to travel for games well before the season begins, and move from Sunday to Thursday could put a major dent in their wallet when it comes to changing travel plans. Teams that voted against the measure were the Giants, Jets, Packers, Bears, Raiders, Lions, Bengals, and Steelers. Was this decision solely made to make Amazon happy?
I don't know if it was made solely for Amazon, but I definitely think Goodell loves Thursday Night Football, and I think that he's going to look for any way to generate revenue as much as possible. But it is pretty brutal to the players in general. I personally, I hate Thursday Night Football. I just can't get into it. No matter, I've tried. And the thing is, coming off Sunday and then having a Monday night game, you basically get 2 days to breathe before Thursday Night Football. Half the time the games are crap because the team that has to fly over barely gets a chance to practice, barely gets a chance to prep for any type of game plan. Plus, if you have a guy who's hurt, like I'll just use like Garrett Wilson, for example. God forbid he gets hurt in a Sunday game and you have a Thursday game, he's most likely not playing. So your team is already going to be at a major disadvantage. Yeah. And that's the thing I hate the most about Thursday Night Football. And I do think in a way it's because you definitely have this huge Amazon thing going. And you're going to flex a team out from Sunday to Thursday, which to me is insane. But again, it's all about generating revenue. Goodell knows that. Goodell wants that. And if he feels the need to flex out Pat Mahomes from a Sunday game to a Thursday game, he's going to do it. And I just think it's a terrible idea. And I agree with what Mara said. I think it is abusive to the players because they barely get a chance to lick their wounds from a game on Sunday before they're all of a sudden out the door for a travel day on Wednesday and 2 days of practice before you have to go back on Thursday. So I think it's a little
real easy fix here, Greg. It's a real easy fix. Go back to 2 buys and you get a bye before your Thursday night game. And then you can set up matchups that way that are good matchups because they'll both be teams coming off a bye.
Mm-hmm.
They get a second bye week that's a full bye week. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it's a smart move. Again, you're talking about end of the season when these guys are just beaten up. And now you got to tell them, okay, we're going to flex you out to, and how do you even know what happens a month out to know that? I mean, you think you're kind of doing the players a service by giving them a month's notice, but a month is not a lot of time. It's not a lot of time at all. And then what happens so here's a hypothetical. Let's say a month out, you decide to flex like Chiefs Eagles, right, for a game. And then Mahomes gets hurt in that game.
Right.
Do you flex it out again? Because who's going to want to watch the game? I mean, at this point, right?
But it'd be less than 28 days, so you can't.
And the thing is, it does say something to the fans because, yes, they do make plans ahead of time. They do because that's when it's the cheapest to book months in advance to go to a game. And now all of a sudden you're telling these guys, well, tough shit. You're going to have to book now for a Sunday game or a Thursday game. So I definitely see a lot of the pushback.
But if you look at the teams that voted against it, a lot of those teams, they have fans that travel.
Yeah.
The Jets fans travel, the Giants fans travel, the Bears fans travel, Raiders, Steelers, all travel.
Definitely. Yeah, even now the Lions too, because the Lions are a much better team. So fans are definitely going to start going to their away games more. But it's a terrible idea. Thursday Night Football in itself is a terrible idea. But it's just like, wow. Like now if these guys get hurt, it's going to make it 10 times worse, and the players are just going to have even more backlash towards the league. So, but I think it's a little bit of both. I think Amazon, it's to please Amazon, but I also think it's Goodell because he sees a cash cow and he's going to take advantage every chance he gets.
Yeah.
In case you missed it, has ended, and this episode of The Polar Opposites has ended. And we'd like to thank everybody for checking it out, courtesy of Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. You'll also catch it anywhere where podcasts are available. You can follow the show on Twitter at Polar Oppo and is it Polar Oppo Pod?
Yes.
So Instagram at Polar Oppo Pod, yes, Instagram sir. At Polar Oppo.
No. Okay, Instagram Polar Oppo Pod, Twitter Polar Oppo.
I will
just type in Polar Oppo. You'll get us. Type in Polar Oppo. You don't need to do the rest.
So check it out. Check it out because subscribe, comment, leave us a 5-star review, leave us a review in general, and that's it. So on behalf of Matt, this is Craig. This has been The Polar Opposites. Wherever you are, stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your week. We back next week?
Yes.
All right.
We are.
So way to jump in, Matt. Dynamite drop it, Matty.
I save the day all the time.
All right. So everyone, have a great rest of your week. We'll be back next week with an all-new show. Maddie, take us out.
Bye.